Welcome back, Commanders. My name's Archrist, and today I'll be briefing you on your brand new T-Doll, the proclaimed grown-up, Peri. Peri is a bulwark SMG firing shield tank T-Doll. Her mechanics sacrifice her own HP, but tanks with her own shield. She mainly deals with burn damage and triggers a lot of action supports. I will mention that in all my guides, I'll be referring to Confectant's index as skill points, since this is much easier to understand. Peri's skill point generation mechanic is tied to a passive, profit maximization. First of all, someone did a terrible job at centering its icon. At the end of Peri's actions, she will gain 1 skill point. She will also gain 1 skill point each time an ally performs an action support that deals burn damage. This can only happen once per turn, and doesn't work if she's at max skill points. Peri's passive also allows her to perform a basic attack for every 3 stacks of hot investment buff she has, turning a basic attack into burn damage, dealing 12% of Peri's max HP for each stack of hot investment. She will gain stacks of hot investment from her other abilities. The buff itself reduces damage taken by 10%, however also reduces healing by 10%. Hot investment can be stacked up to 6 times, and at the start of each turn, she will lose half the amount of stacks she has, rounding up. So essentially, whenever she is at 6 stacks, she can follow up with 2 basic attacks that deal burn damage. Peri's basic attack is Passionate Gift. It has a range of 6 and deals physical damage equal to 80% of her attack and reducing 3 stability. Peri's active skill 1 is Venture's Capital, which has a 2-turn cooldown. She selects 1 target within 6 tiles and loses 30% of her own HP and gains 2 stacks of hot investment. Keep in mind that this will not bring her HP below 10%. She then attacks the target, dealing burn damage equal to 120% of her attack and reducing 4 stability. Peri's active skill 2 is Excess Order, which has a 2-turn cooldown. She selects 1 tile within 6 tiles and then loses 40% of her own HP and gains 3 stacks of hot investment. Again, this will not bring her below 10% HP. She then hits in a 2-tile AoE from the selected tile, dealing AoE burn damage equal to 100% of her attack and reducing 2 stability to all enemies hit. All enemies will also receive Overburn for 2 turns. Overburn will deal fixed damage equal to 10% of Peri's attack to the affected enemy and any enemies adjacent to them at the end of their turn. Peri's ultimate is Final Bid, which costs 6 skill points. She instantly gains 6 stacks of hot investment, as well as Bargain and Capital Protection for 3 rounds. Bargain will make all of her basic attacks a guaranteed crit, as well as increasing her overall damage by 30%. Capital Protection is a shield equal to 50% of Peri's HP, and also prevents 2 stability damage, and applies Taunt to any enemies within 2 tiles of Peri at the end of her actions. Something worth noting is that shield effects do not stack. For example, Xiaomi's shield effect is Frost Barrier, but when Peri uses the ultimate to create her own shield, it will overwrite the Frost Barrier with Capital Protection. Whether one shield effect overwrites another or not depends on which shield is stronger. In my case, because Peri's shield is stronger, if I started with Capital Protection and try to override it with Xiaomi, it won't work, because Xiaomi's shield is weaker than Peri's. When deploying Peri onto the field, the key element to playing her is running into the front behind cover, drawing in aggro, and then engage action supports from her team. She can replace the sustain slot in a fire team as she can create her own shield, however she does not have any inbuilt heals, so she is at risk of getting one shot once the shield breaks, as she's likely only going to be at 10% HP. She does require QJ or Shakari to have their mod key so that she can generate 2 skill points a turn to keep up her shield. When it comes to a rotation, on turn 1, use Ultimate. This will put her on 6 stacks of hot investment, which allows her to follow up with 2 basics. On turn 2, use active skill 2, which will bring her back up to 6 stacks, so she can once again follow up with 2 basics. On turn 3, use active skill 1, which only puts her at 5 stacks, so she can only follow up with 1 basic. And then this loop repeats. If for some reason you use active skill 1 before active skill 2, she will lose a basic attack between each cycle. On to her pros and cons. She can constantly keep aggro. For as long as she has a shield, she will taunt nearby enemies. She gets to perform 2 targeted attacks per turn, which is great for triggering action supports, which overall makes her kit fit well within the burn team. And depending on the maps and enemies, you can replace your sustain with her, bringing in more damage and action supports. As for her cons, as a bulwark character, her overall attack values are on the lower end. and doesn't contribute any offensive buffs to support the team, which makes her an overall niche pick over the current burn dolls. The fact that she's supposed to be a tank, but her own kit reduces her own HP and incoming healing, just makes her seem really flawed. Peri's best weapon is a signature, a Monitor. It grants attack boost, and its trait reduces damage taken by 2% for every burn debuff the attacker has, up to 6%. Its effect is Fatal Bullseye, increasing her crit damage by 15% and a further 2% for each basic attack, up to 25%. She can use Vector's Banshee's Whisper, it grants attack boost, and its trait grants a random buff if Peri is at full HP at the start of the turn. Its effect is Mournful Elegy. Before an ally attacks, if the enemy being hit has a burn debuff, this will increase their damage by 10%. If the ally was also dealing burn damage, it increases another 10%. And if they have the Overheat Combustion debuff, that will increase support actions against them by 5%. If you got the Battle Pass, Peri can use the Classified Manuscript. It grants attack boost, and its trait grants 2 extra movement next turn if Peri has moved at least 5 in the current turn. Battle Rush ignores 5% of defense for each tile Peri moves this turn, capping at 5 tiles. If Peri moves at least 5 tiles, 1 buff will be removed from the target she attacks. Otherwise, use any other elite SMG for its base stats. If you do not have any spare elite weapons, she can use a namesake, the MP5H1. It has the same trait as the signature, and its effect, Infernal Valor, increases damage if she's below 75% HP. Otherwise, use the Publisher 41. Its trait ignores 5% of target's defense for each debuff they have, capping at 20%. And its effect is High Priority Target, which increases damage against large targets. When it comes to her attachments, her best substats are HP%, HP, attack percent, and then crit damage. Most of her damage will be from her basic attack, which is based off HP. When it comes to which attachment sets to farm, her best set is the Burn Boost set, increasing her burn damage by 20%, which all of her attacks deal. When it comes to her fixed keys, the best ones to obtain is 201 Basis of Trade, which starts her off at max skill points. This is essential as this allows her to ultimate on turn 1, otherwise she'll be ulting on turn 3. 603 Social Engineering, she'll do 10% more damage against burn debuffed enemies. And 203 Cool and Reliable, for each stack of hot investment she has, she increases defense by 5%. Fixed keys 401, 403 and 601 are situational for increasing her survivability and can be swapped out, but it's not recommended for a core build. Her common key is Still Growing, which increases face damage dealt by 10% if attacking the same enemy multiple times. This would be a really good universal common key if it wasn't for that HP boost. Other common keys you can steal are Mech T's Gaming Time, which increases the basic attack damage by 20%, or Tsuyomi's Mission Blessing. If her HP drops below 80%, she gains a 40% defense bonus for 2 turns. However, this can only happen once. Next, we'll have a quick look at the Fortifications. At V1, she gets to perform a basic attack for each 2 stacks of hot investment she has. This is a really great breakpoint to stop if you really like Peri, as this allows her to perform 3 basic attacks per turn, which makes triggering all of QJ's action supports really easy, even with a V1 Vector. At V2, the bargain buff from her ultimate now increases her damage by 60%, and she will recover all of her stability when it runs out every 3 turns. At V3, her base stability is increased by 6, and each hot investment stack will now increase her burn damage by 8%. At V4, her active skill 2 only takes 30% of her HP, down from 40%, while also increasing its AoE by 1 tile. And for each stack of hot investment, the multiplier of this attack will be increased by 5% up to a maximum of 130%. At V5, her active skill 2 only takes 20% of her HP, down from 30%, and the multiplier of this attack is increased by 10% for each stack of hot investment, while also cleansing 1 buff from the target. And at V6, Bargain will now give her basic attack another 50% crit damage bonus, and her shield effect Capital Protection now reduces the attack of enemies attacking her by 30%. To finish off, we'll have a quick look at suitable teammates to field along Peri. Her best pairings is V3 QJ with V1 Vector. While this is pretty high investment, Peri is really good at proccing all of QJ's action supports. As Chihua has been announced to be out soon, Peri has good synergy with her as well. More on Chihua when she comes out. Otherwise, Peri is a doll that you field in the flex spot for fun. Here are some examples of team compositions. They're all kind of a different variant of a burn team. And that about wraps up this character briefing for Peri. I hope this guide helps, and if you have any other suggestions on to build your teammates, make sure to leave a comment below. Until next time, Commanders.